Ultimately, what Huawei wants is for US courts to throw out this bill banning federal agencies from purchasing its equipment. It says the bill, which was imposed in March, basically deems Huawei guilty of national security risks without providing any evidence and then imposing a large number of restrictions on it. The legal advisors at Huawei have filed this motion at a summary judgment level, which means it doesn't want it to go to a full trial, but it basically says it's hoping that the courts will deem the move unconstitutional and prohibits it from being enforced. Now, this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the wider problems that Huawei is facing, namely the ban on the sale of American components for it to build many of its products. But I suppose it's all part of Huawei's efforts to discredit the action that the American government has taken against it. And as we've heard Huawei say before, it will take all action necessary to push back against the moves against it, stopping it from being part of this global 5G network race.
Okay, so that's the legal side. Let's take a look at the operational side now. Since the U.S. Sanctions were initially imposed on Huawei, there's been a lot of talk of sort of the company developing its own operating system so that it doesn't have to rely on Google's Android operating system. Where does the company stand on that exactly now?
Well, this is actually turning out to be a little bit of a PR nightmare for Huawei. Last week, the consumer CEO said that Huawei had been developing its own operating system since 2012 under the code name Hongmeng. And of course, as we know, there was action taken against ZTE just about a year ago, which essentially brought that to a complete shutdown. And so Huawei has already said that it was planning in advance in the event that the US might take similar action against it. Just yesterday, an interview took place with a senior executive in the Middle East, though, that suggested that the operating system was ready for rollout in a matter of months. Since then, Huawei has had to retract that statement and say that it isn't ready for rollout. It will perhaps take until the end of the year or perhaps until next year for its operating system to roll out. But it is an indication that its operating system isn't quite ready for the market just yet. And as we know, there are sort of cracks happening in the system already, with consumers turning their backs on Huawei devices because of it not being able to support Google's applications and services in the future. So it does seem as though Huawei is facing some very serious technological problems coupled with this PR crisis that's going on as well.